My name is Walid Hejazi, and I'm a professor at the University of Toronto's Rotman School of Management. I've been teaching in the MBA and Executive MBA program here at the school for the past 25 years. I also teach internationally across Asia, the Middle East, and South America. What we talked about today in class was really around the change in the global economy. When you think about 30 years ago, the G7 or the developed world is really where most of the global economy was located. But what we're saying increasingly is a shift in the global economy away from the West and increasingly towards Asia. So why does this matter for international business students? We all know the big trends in outsourcing. The idea that companies in North America, companies in Europe are increasingly moving their production of low value activities to places like India and China. But what's fascinating is that as these countries emerge and develop, the cost of production is rising rapidly. That has enormous implications for outsourcing strategy. The idea being that many people have this perception that China is an incredibly cheap and inexpensive place to do business, is a place where there's very little protection for intellectual property, and this influences dramatically the outsourcing strategies that executives in North America and Europe consider and deploy. But what we talked about today and documented is the real emergence of China and other developing countries, and a demonstration of how they're becoming much more innovative and competitive in the global economy. So for example, in the Chinese context, no longer do you see Western companies moving low value production to China. You see those kinds of production moving to other countries in Asia, such as Cambodia, Vietnam, Bangladesh, and so on. So what does that leave for Western companies to outsource to places like China? Those are increasingly high value production activities. One of the big considerations in thinking about moving production from an advanced Western economy like Austria or like Germany or like the United States is the levels of protection for intellectual property. And many people think about China as a place where there's very little protection. So they're reluctant, many Western companies are reluctant to move their advanced technology to a Chinese environment. But what the data now show is that China is improving its protection for intellectual property very rapidly. So all of this to say is what we talked about is when you think about globalizing your supply chain, which companies must do in order to be globally competitive, we need to think about engaging China and other emerging markets, but we have to be consistent with our understanding of the reality on the ground. The costs to operate in China are increasing, the innovativeness of the Chinese economy is improving, and protection for intellectual property is improving to the surprise of many. That provides a better informed executive and therefore will result in a more efficient deployment of globalization strategies and managing global companies generally.